Okay, I'm Charles Harbaugh the fourth. Welcome to the NFL Draft Preview Show on News Talk 1400 and Win Life TV. I'm joined with ESPN analyst and reporter John Keim, who is an expert on all things Washington and the NFL. He's going to give us a preview show of what to expect in the NFL Draft tonight, and who the Jaguars pick, who does Washington pick, what does the rest of the NFC East do. We're going to talk about all those things. So, John, welcome to the show. You're a member of the Clark County Litter Committee, among any other things. So you've been 100% local in helping this area out. We really appreciate that. And you've written multiple books on the NFL. You're a subject matter expert. What are you looking to see? What excites you most about the NFL Draft tomorrow?
Well, what excites me most, to be honest, Charles, is getting it over with, because we've talked about this for months. So it's just nice to get here and to see, not just talk about what a team is going to do, but then talk about what a team actually did. How does this player fit in versus, I think they could take this guy, or maybe it's this guy. Now we know it's player X. How does he fit in? And then you can at least start to look ahead for the season and play into all those scenarios. But that's the part I'm looking forward to the most, is knowing who we can actually, who's legitimately a part of the team.
Yes. And last year's pick, Jamin Davis, I was at the stadium at draft day, and we weren't the Commanders yet. We were still the Washington football team. Yeah. That pick surprised people in the stands. What was your insight on that pick?
It shouldn't have been a big surprise, because you knew they were looking at linebackers. So I guess the surprise was that there were a lot of, I guess some of the mocks would have him in the back half of the first round. So from that standpoint, okay, he was picked a little bit ahead, but in leading up to it, he was always a name that I know myself and others would mention in connection with them. So I will say the guy that I liked more at that spot was Koromoa from Notre Dame, who went to Cleveland, because I felt like that speed, I felt like he played faster, and made more of an impact in the box, despite being smaller than Davis did at Kentucky. But the other clues would be Davis has a military background. Rivera loves that. He's also got the size and the athleticism to develop into something more. So I think, you shouldn't have been too surprised, because it was an area that you knew they would address, and there was an area that was strong there. But, to me, I would say I had mild surprise, because I knew they liked Koromoa, and I thought if they went to Davis that it would have been at a trade back, but you knew they liked him. So, maybe you should be mildly surprised more than really surprised.
And then, of course, the big news today, you tweeted about it, Montez Sweat, they exercised his fifth-year option for Washington.
Right. Not a surprise at all. We've known for almost 2 months that they would do that. So, this is a guy they want to keep for a while, and if he produces this year, he's going to be an expensive guy to keep for a while. If you didn't do this, then you're running the risk of him playing another year and then having to franchise him if you want to keep him. So it helps. It's the right move. It's the only move. So.
And you want to avoid another Preston Smith type situation where we don't re-sign him. He goes to Green Bay, puts up huge numbers. And then, gosh, we wish we would have kept this pass rusher in-house. So exercising that fifth-year option really helps with Montez Sweat.
It does, although even with Preston always came close to getting numbers here and didn't. So, and you can, for whatever reason, like some people on his side would say it was a style of defense that prevented him, but he didn't put the numbers up here. He was always close to plays, close to this, and he didn't always finish. But that's where you get into how are you being used? And I think that was part of the question on his side. So, to pay what they would have needed to pay for what his production wasn't wise. However, in hindsight, he certainly went up there and did well, but I think it was probably a better defense, more suited for him. He had more talent around him. So, but yeah, and here's the other thing, Charles, too. If you're Washington, like one of the things I'm doing in this draft is trying to find more young edge rushers. They don't have a lot of those. So not to replace Montez Sweat or Chase Young, but what if you get to a point where Sweat, like what you want is make it a no-brainer, right? Preston Smith didn't make a no-brainer. Make it a no-brainer what you can do. Put up the numbers that make a no-brainer saying you got to sign this guy.
Yes.
Don't leave it up to that. We went through that with Arakpo too, right? We saw that. He put up the numbers that make no brainer. If you don't, then you have a decision to make. And that's when you need to have replacements on the roster, if possible, because otherwise then you're having to replace with something expensive.
Interesting NFL free agency, to say the least, the wildest that I've been a part of and seen of, with quarterbacks and changing hands. One key factor, though, is like, it seems like, Terry McLaurin's contract coming up. John, what are your thoughts on Terry and the money that wide receivers are making now?
Well, I kind of wish I developed into a 6'1" receiver back in the day. And but of course I'm the 5'9.5" inch. I was a 5'9.5" inch safety. So it wasn't really my road. That's what I think. Cause it's like being a left-handed pitcher in baseball now. You're going to get paid. If you play. I think it's shocking where it's gone. I think some of the moves in free agency, Christian Kirk to Jacksonville, bumped up the ante for everybody else. And so I'm surprised at this, because the draft has been so good at receiver and will continue to be really good at receiver. Do you really need to pay? Like, you need to pay edge rushers. You need to pay quarterbacks. They're harder to find. Receivers aren't hard to find right now. But I think in Terry's case, and in some cases, I think Terry transcends a lot of that because of his importance to this organization and the fan base. This fan base has been turned off by so many things. You would lose even more if you somehow didn't keep McLaurin. So I think that gives them an advantage here, as opposed to like Kansas City. Let's Tyreek Hill go. Well, they've got Patrick Mahomes. You can bring someone else and you're okay. They need to keep McLaurin. So my guess is the money for him will be in that 20 to 25 range. And he's a guy that I know they want to keep. He's a guy that they're not panicking over about anything right now. You don't hear the talk with him that you hear about, like with DK Metcalf or Deebo Samuel. They're using Terry as a face of the franchise right now. They want to keep him. The timetable all along has been start working on something in the spring. Last year, for example, they started working with something with John Allen in the spring. July 27th in Richmond, there's a press conference to announce his signing. I think that's the path they're kind of going down with this. The hard part here, Charles, is that the money keeps going up. So, but if you've noticed, the other guys in Terry's class, in that draft class, Deebo Samuel, Metcalf, AJ Brown, they haven't signed either. So I don't know who's going to be the first to blink there. Would Terry be the first to blink? Don't know. And then the last part of this is the Carson Wentz deal. They went out and got a more expensive quarterback than I shouldn't say than they were planning for, because they were trying to get Russell Wilson. But when you get a guy who's going to make 28, 26, 27 per year, then you've got to start organizing your future finances in a really good way to make sure you can keep him, that if you want to keep Daron Payne, if you want to extend other guys, that you have the ability to do so. But I would expect them at this point to get it done. I've heard nothing to be pessimistic about, but until a deal is signed, you never know.
Well, we're going to take our first break. You're listening to the NFL Draft Preview Show with Charles Harper IV and John Keim on News Talk 1400 and Win Life TV.
Hi, everyone. I'm Vanessa McAllister with the Topper Virginia Regional Chamber. I'm coming to you today from the Hanley Bowl at John Hanley High School, where this year's Corporate Challenge will be held on July 16th. Today, we're going to give you a little preview of what round one's relay will look like. So runners, are we ready? Runners, take your mark. Get set, go! hopefully that gave you an idea of the fun we're going to have at this year's Corporate Challenge. So please sponsor this event, get your teams of 6 together and register online, and bring your family, bring your friends, and come out to this year's Top of Virginia Regional Chambers Corporate Challenge that will be held July 16th. Get out of the office and get into the challenge.
Welcome back to the NFL Draft Preview Show on News Talk 1400 and Win Life TV. Got Charles Harbaugh IV, John Keim here. We're talking about all things Washington NFL Draft. John, mock drafts have been coming around and about who the first pick tomorrow is for the Jaguars. Who's your money on the first pick tomorrow night?
I mean, it seems like the safe money is Aiden Hutchinson, but I don't know what if it's a 60% chance, 70% chance. Would they go Evan Neal because you have Doug Peterson, a coach who wants to build up that line? They just signed Cam Robinson, their tackle, on Wednesday. Would they then draft Evan Neal and get your bookends? He's a terrific offensive lineman. Like, he's really good. Or do you go traits and take Trayvon Walker from Georgia? That's another guy that has to be in the mix. I would say right now the money would be on Hutchinson because that's where it's been, but it wouldn't shock me if for one of the other two go there. But right now I'd put it on Hutchinson, but I'm not putting a lot.
And we discussed earlier some of the quarterbacks, but that's always what gets ramped up draft time. You see quarterbacks move up the board. And then during the draft, it's always like 1 or 2 don't pan out, but you have the potential for 3, 4 to be drafted in the first round. John, which quarterbacks are you looking at that you like, that you see?
Boy, I don't know that I like parts of each one of their games. It's hard not to like Malik Willis's athleticism in the arm. All right. And his personality is really, I think that's important. It's hard not to like, you look at Sam Howell, and I think there's some swag that he plays with in his junior film when he had a bunch of talent around him, far better than what his film was this year. So what does that mean for his NFL future? I don't know, but it's like, it makes him like, it's almost like that Rorschach test. Which one are you looking at? Junior year or senior year? Which one matters more? I think Des Ridder, I love the intangibles that he brings. I don't like the inconsistencies. I like the athleticism, but his accuracy can be off. Kenny Pickett, I think he plays with a maturity, has more athleticism, but I don't like the way he always sees the field. I think there's sometimes he misses guys on defense or misses seeing them for some reason. It's baffling to me. So, if I really need a quarterback in this draft, I'd have to say like, well, are you better off getting one now or just roll the dice and see what happens next year when you have possibly a much stronger class? So, because
Sam Howell moving up a lot of people's draft boards, yes. John, and here recently. And then, Kenny Pickett was the consensus #1 for a little while. Cynthia Freeland for the NFL Network has her comp for him as Jake Plummer. Any chance Washington goes quarterback here?
At 11?
Yes.
No, none. None.
Okay.
If they take one, it would be in the later rounds of the draft.
A flyer for somebody to develop.
Carson Strong or someone like that. I know they like Carson Strong. If his knees check out, he'd be a guy to watch later in the draft.
Great. Thank you for that insight. So moving on with that, Carson Strong, we just signed Carson Wentz. We have Heineke still there. What's your thoughts on that deal there for Washington?
It's with the quarterback room.
Yes.
Yeah. It's better. Carson Wentz is an upgrade. Now is it worth the money and the draft picks? Well, that remains to be seen. But he's better. He's not in that top 10 category. He can have games like that, and he can have games where he's in the bottom of the starters, right? But so he's probably right. He's probably more so in the middle, which would be an upgrade for them. So I think what he gives you is the bigger arm, and which I think he can open up the field for them. Is one of the problems for Heineke. God bless the way a guy plays. I mean, I enjoy watching him play. He plays with the swag, he plays with the spunk and all that. But there are a lot of times where his arm just isn't there. He can't make certain throws where you'd say, oh, McLaurin's open, but the ball's just kind of hanging up there. And that's something that the coaches noticed. And then I think also on some of the quick game throws over the middle, that with that size, it can be harder for him to see over the line to get that timing down. Will Wentz be better there? So I think those are some areas to watch. So it's better. And I also would say this, I think with Heinicke as a backup, you're in good shape because the guy can come in and play and help you. So I think they're in good shape. They're in much better shape than they were even a year ago when they had Ryan Fitzpatrick and everybody's going crazy. It's like, oh, maybe he's found the formula for his career. So I think, and I know there are questions about Carson Wentz. I have them too. Is he the guy for the long term? Can't say that yet, but he certainly gives them an upgrade now. And whether or not the price was worth it, they have him. So, so is he better? Yes.
Last year, disappointing year for Washington fans, now Commander fans. 7-10 wasn't what we were quite expecting there. We thought maybe, 9 wins, 10 wins we were hoping for, but the quarterback play didn't pan out and the defense didn't rise to the expectations. What was the most disappointing thing from Washington last year for you, John?
Oh, I think the defense by far. Now, it's more so the way they opened the season. It's like the first 4 games or so, they were dreadful. I mean, it was dreadful. Over the next 8, I think it was from the 5th game on, they played much better. And the stats bear that out. Like in the first 4 weeks, they were one of the worst defenses in the league based on the stats, yards, points allowed, et cetera. Over the next 8 weeks, they were close to the top 10, and then injuries, COVID and all that brought them back down. But and the play of the ends the pass rush was not what you would hope for. So the disappointment by far was on defense. Heinicke played better as well as you could have hoped for. He lasted the whole season, which nobody would I didn't think he would because his style of play and he's a small guy. But again, God bless the guy because he did it. And I think he gave them a chance. There are things that he did, he was an inexperienced quarterback. So the offense kind of did what it did. The defense was disappointing and it has to be better.
Yes. What was, we've talked about the bad, but what was something that stood out with you? Was there a player that you thought whose game really progressed last year? Was there somebody that turned the corner for you?
I think Antonio Gibson at the end of the year did. And he was transitioning from college receiver to running back, and he was a raw college receiver. So he had to learn how to play running back. And you could see the last couple of games where, to me, there was a difference in the way he ran. In the last game of the year against the Giants, you really saw it. I know the game didn't matter. The Giants stunk, but I don't care about that because it's the traits that he showed in that game. The patience that he ran with on some of his runs and the way he set up some defenders, I really liked. So if he's going to continue to build on that and run that way, I think that's a really good sign for them. So I think that excited them as well. But you could see it on film. I mean, he was much more patient in setting guys up and then this cut. So I think I liked that development there. As far as some other players that developed, I think I love the way John Allen played. I mean, he was terrific. Charles Leno was a nice find. I think Sam Cosmi showed some things. Davis has got to do more. De'Ami Brown's got to do more. But I think it was, like I said, I'll go back to Antonio Gibson and just stay there because I thought he did a really nice job at the end, especially.
A local fan favorite was injured. Logan Thomas, of course, star quarterback at Virginia Tech. He's very critical at the tight end position, but you saw Bates emerge. What are you looking for Logan? What are you looking for from Logan Thomas this year?
Just to get back on the field because he's coming off that torn ACL, and you saw it was such a tough year for him with his health, the hamstring and then the ACL. And he's such a key part of that offense. You notice a difference when he was in there and when he wasn't. I mean, especially in the red zone, he's terrific inside there. So just get healthy because if he can, then that's a good development for them. We don't know when he's going to be back because, again, it was early December when he tore it, and those ACLs are around 9 months, would be the early end of those things. And so will he be back in there for September? You're right. John Bates would develop nicely, especially as a blocker, but they need Logan as a pass catcher because they really don't have that guy at all. If he's not there, they lost Ricky Seals-Jones. So you don't have that pass catcher right now. But yeah, he's terrific.
And, I normally wouldn't ask you this, John, but, this is a local area. Mark Mosley lives here. It seems like we found our kicker, Joey Sly. He brought a lot of confidence last year for, the year we had with Hopkins, and then all the missed field goals and some of the issues that we had there with Blewett. And then we found Sly, and then he did get injured at one point, but he seemed to provide a lot of confidence and stability at that position.
He did. First of all, he might be the most muscular kicker I've covered. He's a big dude. He likes to lift weights. He was really good. And the shame of it for this team is the Chris Blewett move was, to me, too much of an overreaction initially with Hopkins. If you can't, if they had replaced Hopkins with Sly, no problem at all, because you saw what he could do, right? And he had been kicking. He had shown a little bit what he could do before that point. He wasn't available at that time, but Blewett hadn't kicked in a game in 5 years. Like, the results weren't surprising. And if they had had a better kicker on that Denver game, they probably win that game. So I didn't like the move at the time, but I loved the Sly move. So they got, if they get their guy, and I understood the frustration with Hopkins because he was very inconsistent. That was never the point, was they should keep him. It's, if you're going to cut him, who are you replacing with? And that turned out to be a really bad move. But the Sly move was really good. And so I think you can cross your fingers that they have a guy, because it is hard to, as you know, and as Mosley would know too, it's all about consistency. Half a year, that's great, but what are you doing over the course of a year? And then what are you doing the next year and the year after that? But yeah, he's a guy they signed to a couple of year deal. Good move. I like what I've seen from him.
All right, we're going to take our second break. NFL Draft Preview Show. John Keim, Charles Harwell IV on News Talk 1400 and Win Life TV.
You know the name, Sullenberger's Hardware, but did you know they have sporting goods, guns, ammo, archery, hunting blinds, everything for the outdoorsman? Come get some.
Welcome back to the NFL Draft Preview Show. Charles Harwell IV, C4, and John Keim. John, thank you for joining us. Insider, are you going to be at draft day tomorrow with the team?
Yes, we always spend it at Ashburn because that's where the people we need to talk to are. Everybody else will be out in Vegas having fun. We'll be out in Ashburn having pizza.
And the team is having a party at the stadium, we should mention. We've got Jonathan Allen going to be there to meet and greet. Fuller and Logan Thomas to meet some of the fans. Also Fred Smoot, who's coming for Apple Blossom. We were able to get him, so he'll be in town. Terry Bradshaw, Dr. J, and of course Fred Smoot. So lots of sports fans. If you're listening to this, the draft, and you can get out of the house on Saturday, you don't want to watch the second or third rounds, you can come on out and enjoy yourself at the Shenandoah Apple Blossom Festival. Okay, the big question, and we waited till the end, John. What's your prediction tomorrow? We've read your materials. Kyle Hamilton, Drake London. You like London's footwork for a big receiver. Who's the pick tomorrow at 11 for Washington?
I think it will be Drake London. And, again, it always depends on how it falls, because I know there's a couple tackles there that they really like, that if one of them fell, they'd be really tempted to go in that direction, and maybe more than tempted. I think they would do it. But I don't think those guys are going to fall. So I think, and if Jameson Williams, if there are no questions about his recovery, well, he's the guy. But if there's no question about his recovery, he'll be gone. So I think London will be there. I think he would be the pick, because I think, the one thing that Rivera has constantly said this offseason, when you get a quarterback, you've got to do two things: protect him and give him weapons. and they don't have enough. And I've talked to people over there, multiple people who are like, yeah, they like Curtis Samuel. Yeah, they like what De'Ami Brown can do, but they need another guy. Drake London is that other guy. And if they took Chris Olave, I'd be all for that. If they did take Williams, I'm fine with that. Garrett Wilson, I'm really good with that. But I think London is the guy that, to me, based on what I've heard for the last few weeks, is the guy that they really like.
And we know Rivera and Del Rio are defensive guys. They're probably liking Hamilton too, right?
I know some over there do, but I think the big thing there is, first of all, he would fill a good role for them. So that wouldn't surprise me either. As someone else over there pointed out, they've gone defense 2 years in a row. I don't know that they'll go 3 years in a row on defense. And then the other factor, Charles, is that when you look at that, what they want to fill is that Buffalo nickel role, the Landon Collins role from last year. Hamilton would be really good. If they took him, no problem. But I think they also see other safeties in the first, like later in the first round into the second, that they really like. So I think their hope would be one of those is available at 47. That's a bit of a risk too. So, you know, and I think there are other guys that could play that role for them. There's a guy, Troy Anderson, out of Montana State, linebacker, who's played safety. He can play inside. He's versatile. That wouldn't shock me if they took him and then to fill that role. So I think they have some options there, which is why I think you go offense at 11. But yes, Hamilton has a lot of great skills, a lot of really good traits, and and definitely has some fans over there. I know that.
Great. John, thank you so much for joining us on News Talk 1400 and Win Life TV. We really appreciate it. We'll see if your prediction comes true. For Charles Harbaugh IV and John Keim, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me on.